G'day all, it's Colin from PC TLC and thanks for joining me. In this video, just going to be bringing you along for a bit of a ride. I was just messing around with, once again, VirtualBox. Yeah, I'm using VirtualBox. Had a few issues with Virt Manager in regards to doing the things that I need to do. There's just a certain few things that Virt Manager does not do for me. So thought it's best. I spent so many hours on trying to get Virt Manager working with Windows, shared folders, installing UEFI Windows 10. Legacy's fine. Windows 10 UEFI installed no problem. Couldn't get display at full screen. Having quite a few problems there, so I'm going to use what works, and VirtualBox I know works. Hasn't let me down over many years, so I'm just going to continue to use that, and probably Virt Manager as well, just for simple looks at anything that I may be reviewing or looking around. Or anyway, what I was doing is I've got a computer here behind me. Let's have a look. I don't know if this is going to record that computer too well, but let's just see what we can do. Get that on screen. So I bought this this webcam to hopefully take over the phone, because the phone is not very good for this sort of stuff. I probably need to extend the cord a little bit. Just give me a minute. Okay, cord is extended. So there we go. I don't know what that looks like. I'll only know once I play back the video, so we'll see how we go. If you have a look on there, that's my boot screen there with Peppermint. It's Peppermint 10 and also Windows 10. So we've got the two 10s going on this laptop. Now this has been booting Peppermint and Windows for probably more than 4 years, I think. And I have reinstalled Peppermint about 3 times. I've reinstalled Windows twice, I think. Now I'm at the point where Windows 10 will no longer boot. Yes, unfortunately Windows 10 is stuck in a boot loop after an update or even an upgrade, because it was upgrading different systems. So it'll start up, it'll tell me it wants to upgrade, and I've done this on several occasions, and then it just tells me, sorry, can't do it. And it's just this vicious circle. I can't really use Windows 10. It's the only computer I have Windows 10 on, and I don't really need Windows 10 anywhere else. Occasionally I need to do things on there, not very often. But anyway, what I've done is downloaded the another Windows 10. Now I've installed, this is the one I'm running here actually, this Windows here. Let's just check this out. Let's go to, I think, control panel, I think it might be. Let's check that. Let's go for large icons. I want to look at the system real quick. What do we got there? Windows 10 Pro. I always install a Pro. 20H2, that's what it's called. Seems to be running all right. Looks pretty good. It's up to date. It's got the new Edge browser on there. So that's all working well, because the previous one I had was the 1909, which is what is on this USB here. If we have a look, actually it's not available to Linux because it's in the VirtualBox. It's connected to the VirtualBox. So UEFI NTFS, that is the Windows 10 1909. So the 20H2 I believe is the 2010, and a next update with some patch fixes, I think it was. I didn't really read into it that much. And yes, I forgot to show you, my shared folder is in here, VBox share, and there's my Windows 10 ISO and Rufus and that Christmas card picture. And the Win 10 and Rufus I've copied into the VirtualBox downloads folder. So it's on the shared folder in Linux, and I've also copied it into the downloads folder on the Windows 10 virtual machine. So what I was doing here, what I've done is I've attached, if we have a look in my Linux box here, I've got under this share folder, That's just a Christmas picture. I was just making sure it was working with some random picture I threw in there. So I downloaded Rufus on Linux, and I've downloaded the Windows 10 ISO on Linux, and then I chuck them into this shared folder here. And as you'll see, my Windows 10 is not connected to the internet. I prefer it not to be. I don't want it updating. Only if I run into some sort of issue with an application that may need that, I can't remember what it's called now. Every now and then there's an application may need something, then I'll have to update. Otherwise, if things work, no problem. Rufus here is just an executable program, so it's in downloads. It's not actually installed. All you do is just double click on Rufus and Rufus runs. So that's all good. And I've got my Windows 10 here. So here I've got my USB passing through to the virtual machine from VirtualBox. I've selected my ISO here, which is the Windows 10 ISO, which I selected from here and selected that one, which you can see here. And then I've got the option here of GPT or MBR. So GPT is a UEFI non-CSM, which means it'll boot for UEFI systems only, and under this one here, MBR. So the problem I have here is most installs I do now would probably be UEFI, but this is legacy, so I need to choose MBR here in Rufus, and the target system is BIOS or UEFI CSM. I'm not sure if it does UEFI with that. I'm going to name the volume Windows 10. File system will be NTFS. There's no other selection there. And the cluster size I'm going to leave as default. The image option is a standard Windows installation. So that's what it's going to be. And I'm going to start that. And all data will be lost on the device, 16 gig. But definitely on the virtual machine, it's only seeing the plugged in 16 gig USB. There's no other option. So I'm going to click OK on that. And it's now writing to USB. Now, while that's writing, I was using a program called Whoa USB, could not get it to install on Pop OS. I added the PPA, but it still says it cannot locate. What does it say? Let's have a look. So sudo apt install Whoa USB, unable to locate package Whoa USB. So that's the problem I'm facing. That was with the PPA installed. So I've decided to go the VirtualBox route with Windows 10, and it's probably just as easy as using a Windows 10 on real hardware at the end of the day, as you can see. With USB pass-throughs, quite easy to write a USB. Can only hope that it works. I'm sure it will. I've done this many times. What I'll probably end up doing is once I've installed to here, I might come back and rewrite that USB in UEFI. More than likely I'll do that, because if anyone's asking me to install Windows on their computer, it's more than likely going to be a UEFI situation in most cases. So it looks like that is done. So we'll close that. What should we do? Eject the USB, probably. Safely remove. Eject silicon power, which will bring it available to Linux more than likely. So let's check that out. No, it didn't. So let's remove that. So that is my silicon power Win 10 USB written. So I'm just going to see whether that works. So once I get Windows 10 installed on this computer here, and it's dual booting with Peppermint, I'll more than likely have to do an OS prober and an update grub to get the Peppermint, the grub boot menu. So that's probably what I'll have to do. So I'm going to install this to the computer. I'm pretty sure it should be okay booting from another partition. It should see somewhere in the BIOS to be able to boot from another partition, I believe. Some do it, some don't do it. So we'll see how we go. I've obviously done it before because I've had this issue once before. It's just that few and far between. It's hard to remember what you do. So I might just put down some information, what I do there, so I can remember what I did. Anyway, I'm going to get on with that. It's a HP EliteBook. That's what it is. It's got the spinning monitor, and you can drop it down and turn it into a tablet. So that's how that one works. So let's get on with it. So I've decided not to record in the Windows 10 after install. I've decided to take you through some running commentary on some of the things that I've done to install Windows 10. The biggest problem I run across here was actually getting Peppermint to boot. Now this is one of the problems that I've had with a lot of people on some of my install alongside Windows 10 videos. So I really come unstuck in this situation and had to figure out how to get that back up and running. So we'll run through the video of that. I'll commentate on the video as well. So I just did some video without any talking in it, just a silent video, and we'll check that out. So first of all, on this computer here, press the escape key to get that going. Give us the boot options. That's for the startup menu. So that's what I did there. Then we have the startup menu, boot options, F9 for boot device options there. This is the one I thought that could have given me a partition boot option for any other OS installed, but unfortunately this is a simple boot device menu and that wasn't the case. So the only options I had here was to the notebook hard drive boot, so it just boots the hard drive. So whatever's booting first obviously will be Windows 10. I haven't installed it at this point. I'm just getting ready to install it. But yeah, that's the only option you've got. If I was to choose that at that point, Peppermint would have been the first boot option. But there's no other options to boot. Yeah, as you can see here, interesting enough, this computer does do UEFI. I didn't even know that. I've always done legacy. Really haven't gone into the BIOS much on this computer, to be honest. It was an ex-school computer that my daughter was using, and it had originally Windows 7 running on here, and bought it for $50. The school didn't want it, and it's come in very handy as a travel laptop. It's a bit heavy, but it does its job. I quite like it. And here's the legacy boot order. Here's notebook hard drive, USB floppy, and all those. But yeah, some computers do have the option of picking other OSs that are within different partitions of that hard drive. It'll pick up the DEV, SDA, or whatever within the boot menu options. In this case, it's a very simple one, and I didn't have that option. No luxury there for me, unfortunately. So I'm into the Windows 10 setup here, and I was just not 100% sure which partition I was targeting here. I believed it was the top one, but I had to go back into Peppermint to double check that. So let's check that out. And if we have a look in Peppermint, so I shut down, I cancelled that install of Windows 10, came back into Peppermint just to double check. You don't want to be writing over the wrong partition or operating system. So if we have a look here, dev SDA3 is Peppermint. It's got the ext4. SDA1 is the Windows install, NTFS, and then the NTFS, this one here, 138 gig, is just the data drive. So because Peppermint or Linux reads NTFS easier now, it's easier to just have NTFS file system which accommodates more than 4 gig files, so you can share it between Windows and Linux itself. In this case is Peppermint 10. So yeah, this is the one, unused space 4.25 gig. Now what I've come to realize is, and we'll just go further up here, we'll just scroll through these pictures. I think on full screen. So yes, there's the free space 4.2 gig. So if we go back and have a look in Peppermint, 4.2 gig was the free space in the Windows 10 partition. Now also while doing this process, I come to realize that that was the problem. Windows 10, because it's only a 40 gig hard drive, after all the upgrades that Windows and the updates and the upgrades that Windows 10 went through, unfortunately there wasn't enough space to do the upgrade. That's why it was stuck in this boot loop. It didn't, boot loop, sounds like Fruit Loops. But that was the problem. It just would not upgrade because I didn't have the space to put everything on there. And that was the issue that I come across, lack of space. So here it is here. There needs to be at least 11,048 megabytes, 11 gig minimum of free space on this partition. Free up space on this partition or select another partition. So what I did was I just hit the delete button here, deleted that. Now you can see it's unallocated space. And then we go to the next picture and I will click new, make a new partition there and just click apply. Just take whatever it gives you, which is whatever the space is there for that particular unallocated space, 40 gig, apply that. And as you can see, I did the Windows 10 install. Did I jump the gun too much here? I don't think so. I did the Windows 10 install and you can see there's 19.7 gigs of free space out of the 39.9 gigs of partition, which was the 40 gigs. So that's what's going on there. That's after install. Now the Windows 10 is booting automatically. There's no sign of Peppermint at all to boot. So what I had to do is, let's just run this video here. So I'm in an Ubuntu 20.04.2 live disk. And I was just there searching for boot repair. You got to add the PPA. I just made a bit of an error there. Meant to be a dash before in between the apt and the repository. As you'll see, I'll pick that up and add the dash there. Add that boot repair PPA. We'll run through that and then we'll do an update. And then we'll install boot repair. So that's installing boot repair. And sudo boot repair, and the boot repair does its thing. So I went to advanced options here. Now let's just pause that for a minute. Now the reason I went to advanced options is because let's have a look at this picture here, which I can tell you the story. If you have a look at this here, the way I set this up and the way that I keep on a legacy boot, how I keep the Peppermint boot away from the Windows boot. The Windows will be booting off the front of the SDA disk. So this is the whole disk. SDA is the whole disk. So the whole disk dev SDA means it doesn't have a 1 because the 1, the 2s and the 3s and the 4s are just added or pieces of that main disk of SDA. So Windows 10 will be booting from SDA. If you have a look here, the Peppermint is booting from its own SDA 3. So I install the bootloader on the same partition that Peppermint is installed. Now, unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to repair that. I don't know if there's a way to repair that. So as we run through this video, we'll see grub location. Let's go to that. Now, OS to boot by default, SDA 2. So I was hoping that I had an option. Let's just go fast forward here. I'll go through these options. Now back to here. Now I was hoping here I had the option of choosing SDA 2. And there we go. If we pause there, there's only an option of SDA. So now my dilemma is I can no longer have a separate boot for Peppermint and Windows 10. This is the only option I have. If we have a look at this bit here will become important later on. Now, I had a couple of failed boots. I had after the first one, I think I had nothing. There was nothing at all to be able to boot, not even Windows. Let's have a look at that if I can find that. Yes, there's the old error unknown file system. Entering rescue mode. So it wasn't picking up any operating system at all at that point, and I'll show you at what point that happened. I'm pretty sure it was after this one, I think. I just got to remember that. Or actually, it could have been after I tried the chroot. So I'm just trying to remember what I did here. Let's just fast forward this a bit. Now, I was really desperate here to try and find another option to... let's just fast forward this. Very desperate to find another option here. Couldn't find anything. Nothing there. Nothing really of interest there in that area there as well. So that's all the only option I had. I think I went back to main options, I believe. Now, what did I do here? If I backspace... Yeah, I was looking to see what other options were there. So right there, I did restore MBR. Let's have a look what else the options were. So restore MBR, chose SDA, and then partition booted by the MBR was SDA2. Now, unfortunately, I thought that might have been the only option I had to restore the MBR on SDA2. Didn't work. Let's just see what I did here. Yep, that's the only options I had, and I applied that, I believe. Yeah, I was just looking for other things to do. Apply that. And I think after that one, I think Windows still booted. I think that's what happened there. Windows continued to boot. So that's that video there. Don't think there was much else to see in that video. I'll upload the report. Yeah, okay, let's upload the report to Pastebin. Boot successfully repaired. Well, it wasn't. And there's a, if you go through that, it's got all the boot info repair stuff there in the var log boot repair. Unfortunately, that didn't work. I thought that might have been my chance to get the SDA2 back up and running, but it didn't happen, unfortunately. So next, I did a boot repair with the chroot. I was just looking at partitions there in LSBLK, and then I think I went to BLKID after that, I believe. Sudo BLKID. And let's pause that one. And yes, I was targeting the SDA2 in this case. So let's fast forward this quite quickly. See what I did there. I had to go on the internet and figure out how to mount all this stuff because I can never remember how to do this. I need a cheat sheet for sure how to do this stuff. And if you have a look here, I was just going through a mount dev sda2 / mount, and then sudo mount dev sda2 into / mount, and then mount all this other stuff. proc is processes, I would think, and bind the dev device and the sys and the run and all that, and then mount SDA2 into mount boot, chroot into mount. I didn't do sudo there at that point, so now I'm in there. And I thought I'd do an OS prober, found Windows, but what did it say? Cannot find a grub drive for dev sdb1. Okay, that's fine. Sudo update grub, and then at this point I think I had to do I install grub. It should have been installed anyway. I don't know why it wasn't there. And then I think I did grub2. I think I did the grub2 command eventually. Okay, sudo grub install. Yeah, let's keep going. I was desperately trying a few things there. Probably not the correct thing to do. when I get desperate, I do anything. Let's have a look what I did back there. That's backspace that and slow that back down to normal speed. Sudo apt install grub 2. That's how you install grub these days. It's not just grub alone. And did that. I thought at that point I was probably looking pretty good. And then I did a sudo os prober and then a sudo update grub. Let's have a look at that. Update grub and no such update grub 2. I think dash grub, that's what I forgot. Yeah. And couldn't find the file or whatever. This stuff is painful. That's the problem when you install Windows second. Unfortunately, there's no way around it for me in this situation because Peppermint's already installed. Now, I think on some occasions I've actually over the years since I've had this computer and I've booted had the dual boot going with Windows 10 and Peppermint 10. I think I started with Peppermint maybe 8, I think, and went to 9, went to 10. So reinstalling Linux is not a problem. You just do the OS prober, blah, 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 picks up Windows, no problem. But when you install Windows and you have no intentions of installing Linux, this becomes an issue. To easily clean this up, I can reinstall Linux and put the grub boot back onto the OS partition, SDA2. That's the easiest way to clean that up. So I don't really keep a lot of stuff on this computer. It's like a travel computer. I might use it around the house, just checking out stuff. So I don't really keep. It's not critical anyway because everything is kept on the data drive anyway. If I want to keep anything, so it's not a problem for me to reinstall. But yeah. So what I did was I ended up going back to boot repair on the same chroot thing I was doing. Yeah, I did a sudo update grub 2. That didn't seem to work either. So then I did tried boot repair again while I was after chrooting, and I think I made an error there because I forgot to exit out of the chroot. So there might have been an error there, I think. No, there was no error there. So after trying all that chrooting, I went back into another live disk and ended up doing boot repair again. So I went ahead and did boot repair. So I think after that previous video we just looked at, which was the chroot one, Windows 10 was still booting. That was the problem. So what happened here is, in doing this boot repair, let's just fast forward that a bit. So on this third boot repair, I decided to uncheck all these things in other options. Create a boot info summary, upload the report to a paste bin, participate, check internet connections. I unchecked all those, and what happened there was, after doing that, I was just checking out a few other things here. I just did the reinstall grub, I think it was. The reinstall grub and unchecked all the other options. And after doing that, and click unhide boot menu as well, clicking the apply button, well, after that, that's when I got this one here, error unknown file system. I did another boot repair, which I didn't record, but if we have a look at this one here, which we were just looking at, if I can find the location. So what I did was I checked all these back on, checked reinstall grub location. I just put into OS to boot was SDA2 and placed grub into SDA. And once I did those things and kept the other options checked on, then that's when I got a successful boot. And if we have a look at that, Peppermint there and Windows 10 there. So it's booting, but now what's happening is Peppermint and Windows are both sharing the same boot partition. So that concerns me when that's happening. Not a lot I can do, but if a new Peppermint comes out, I'll definitely install the new Peppermint onto there and put it back the way it was, so they're not sharing it. And if something happens with Windows and it corrupts the Peppermint grub, then I'll reinstall it anyway. So that's where I'm at with that. Because as you can see here, after messing around with chroot and all that, all I had was Windows 10. That's the only option I had on boot. But now we've got this one here. So that's exactly how it was before I installed Windows 10. So now I'm back to normal. So just recapping on this, I think if I had done the recommended repair, which repairs most frequent problems, I think by default it would have been reinstall grub, and it probably would have been the default options, which were in this one here. They would have been the default options anyway. So I was messing around, so it took me a few goes to try and see if I could get the grub back onto SDA2, which I couldn't do. Messed around with that. So I messed around 3-4 times. There was 3 or 4 different boots that I had to do, and I had to, go through the motions of installing the PPA of boot repair and blah, blah, blah. Codecs as well to make sure it all records correctly. So it could have been a simple option of probably just recommended repair. And I'm pretty sure I've done that before and it didn't work. So I like to do the advanced options to make sure it's doing what I want it to do. And I kept unhide boot menu. I kept that checked on. I just kept everything default at the end of the day, and it worked. That was after a lot of messing around with chrootting and updating grub and installing grub and all that. I don't know if that made a difference. I don't think so, because this here reinstalls grub into that SDA anyway. Yeah, so that was my adventures into reinstalling Windows 10, the most up-to-date Windows 10. I needed to rewrite that onto the USB, because when I was doing installs for people on real hardware, it was just too many updates. I was running the 1909, so this one is so much more up-to-date. There's rarely any updates on that ISO from Windows 10 at the moment. So if we just have a quick look at this here, if I can just make sure I capture that. There we go. So there's the, let's have a quick look. There it is there. I don't know if you can see that properly or not. So there's the boot menu there. Yes, I'm pretty happy with the result of that. These days I don't really use Windows 10 too much on the HP Elite notebook. Did keep it for the in-laws when they had their iPhones and they wanted music on there, and they were doing it through iTunes. I think that's a thing of the past now. I don't know whether many people use iTunes these days. It's still around. But I think it's a lot easier to access music these days on iPhones than compared to what it used to be. Yeah, that's not a huge problem. I just keep Windows on there to keep track of what's going on now. It's always good to keep track on how Windows is progressing, just to see what's new in there. So that scenario there, I've had a lot of people make comments on some of my YouTube channels with the dual boots of Windows and Ubuntu, and some people have installed Ubuntu on the second time after Windows, I believe, because they've already got Windows on there, and for some unknown reason it does not show up on boot. It's only Windows that's booting, and there's no boot menu for Ubuntu. So that's probably the best scenario to get your grub boot back again. Although I have taken some people through that, and I think they couldn't even boot Windows or Ubuntu either, which is what you've seen happen to me there as well. That it happens. There's a lot of variables involved. There's so many different computers that react in so many different ways. Unless you're sitting in front of that computer that person's using, it's very hard to know how to guide somebody just with comments on YouTube. My computer's not booting. That's all you get. And then you got to try and squeeze a little bit more information out of them. I don't think people realise that somebody who's YouTubing like myself, showing you how to do these things, you've got to tell me what you did. At least some information anyway. But yeah, that's a way you can get, with the boot repair, to get your grub boot menu back up there again. So anyway, that's my adventures on reinstalling Windows on my HP Elite notebook. Happy days, it's all working. Happy with that. Hope you enjoyed the video. Hope you found it interesting and informative, and thanks for watching.